Okie doke, thank you for staying with us for the news review time to find out what the papers are saying. We'll also be discussing other topical matters of concern. We'll be joined shortly by media consultant Liz Hefenasari. She's on, I hear. But let me also say a very good morning to Bernice Abubedu-Lanza.
Good morning to you. How are you doing?
How do you do?
How do you do?
All right, let's bring in Liz Hefenasari now. Good morning, Liz. Hi, Liz, if you could unmute for us, please. Okay, I see you, but I can't hear you. No.
She's not muted. I just read her lips. Okay.
All right, so we'll get Liz to unmute, and then we shall get into it. I have this morning the Daily Graphic Business Economy Times.
I've got the Daily Statesman, the Daily Guide, and the Finder newspaper. Do you want to start?
I would rather start on an interesting note. I'm sure you've seen that release from Nigeria concerning, the latest jailbreak. And it just keeps getting interesting for me because of the security situation. Today we're talking about arms proliferation in the country. Benefits, yes, but dangers inherent. Yeah. We see what's happening in the United States and other parts of Europe. But I'm getting really concerned about these jailbreaks. The latest data, the 8th of July, and 443 out of the 879 inmates that escaped. So many, some of them are jihadists.
Yes, and I remember last year when there was a major jailbreak, we engaged at that time when I was hosting News Desk, a journalist from Nigeria, and also there were concerns that the next place they could get to as a safe haven was Ghana. Right. And we needed, in fact, I remember the immigration service asking that men on the ground at the borders be on high alert because there were concerns that they would skip Benin, Togo, and enter Ghana. And this is a major concern if you talk about the spillover, the likely consequences of all this, especially on us in the sub-region, in the face of the current threats of terrorism.
Exactly. So you see, it's quite a cocktail. You have a situation with small arms and its proliferation. You also have a jihadist situation. Look at the numbers here. It is believed that the jihadist group Boko Haram, and there are extensions of it, are behind the attack, which saw the use of high explosives and guns. And that is where my fear is. And this has led to 64 Boko Haram-linked inmates at the prison fleeing.
Nigeria has a major problem, and they need to deal with it because it doesn't only affect them like
it doesn't look like they're dealing with a problem. It doesn't look like they have a grip. Do you know how many of these have happened just this year alone?
Yeah, I think about 3 or 4. So if you add it to last year's, you're looking in the region of maybe 6, about 6 jailbreaks. It's not good.
It's not good for the sub-region, especially not at this time. We have the Sudanese pirates and all of that. Now we have this in the sub-region. I just pray because, I can't help it on a day where we're discussing arms and its proliferation. The 1.1 million we are talking about, that is years ago. I remember having conversations on
2016.
Right now, I shudder to think, and just before we get back to Liz, there were incentives offered to people. Deliver your arms and we'll give you X, Y, Z. Ask how many respond.
But the problem is not about delivering the arms. The problem is where is it produced? How do people get an access? Because, Benjamin, if you ask me to give some amount of money for a gun, maybe that time I need some money. I'll give you my gun, take the money. And maybe I could even take a portion of that money and get myself another gun. So brings us back to square one. You get it. And also the concern about the general security situation and people wanting to take their security into their own hands. Right. So like you said, it's a cocktail. There's so many things leading to this particular problem, and we really need to look at it.
Well, let's bring in Liz Hefenasari. Let's find out whether we can hear from her now. Hello, Liz.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes,
better.
We can.
Much better now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okie doke.
I hope both of you are fine.
We are.
We are. We are just
too
scared about the situation in the sub-region. I don't know whether you heard what we were discussing a short while ago.
I did, and it is scary, it is frightening, and it's good that military have been put on high alert. So talking about proliferation of arms and talking about jailbreaks, it sends a signal that security is not that up to scratch in the sub-region. And so I think that ECOWAS needs to quickly put something together, put something in place so that the citizens feel safe, because it's frightening.
Point made. Let's check out the Daily Statesman.
All right, so let's come home. And the front page of the Daily Statesman, IMF will help repair economy. President says engagement will be short-run. Appeals to teachers to return to classrooms. Alan, there is hope for economic rebound. And Baumia on technology to help Africa scale over economic crisis. And this one, Abanga innovation needed in NPP youth wing. Liz, so the IMF team is in town. Well, we've been told a couple of things about what exactly this bailout means for us. It's supposed to help us pay, deal with our balance of payment. And we're told that it won't deal with the general economic situation. There are other interventions government hopes to put in place to deal with that. There are concerns that government is going back on its agenda to push Ghana beyond aid. We've heard from Kojo Nkrumah, who says this is not aid, it's a loan. What do you make of this whole IMF situation and all the concerns that have been raised amidst the call by TUC members for, some cost of living allowance to be paid them despite all that?
I believe that we're all living in this country and we've all seen inflation go through the roof. And we've seen prices on the market skyrocket. And we've seen transportation fares go up. And you know that the salaries that people are taking is nothing to write home about. If they're asking for, excuse me, if they're asking for additional cost of living allowance, it's not out of place. Because with all the increases, we see that salaries have not been increased that much. 4% is just a drop in the bucket. And so if they're asking for more, definitely government would be on the defensive, but let's look at it from the part of the worker. When they have to pay more for food, when they have to pay more for electricity, pay more for water, pay more for transportation. And if you have a family of even 2 or 3, then your salary probably is nothing to write home about. So we need to sit down and negotiate properly. If there are other interventions that can be given them, because again, we know that some of the teachers, and I have gone around and I've seen some of them use their own money. The money that they complain is not enough. They need to use it to provide for the children that they're trying to educate or they're teaching. And so there's a lot to be done. No textbooks, the exercise books do not come that often. So there's a lot that people are complaining about when it comes to education, the education sector. But with the workers too, it's the same thing. You go to the office, there's no logistics. People are struggling to get paper to print things on, and it's a whole mess. So I think that we need to take our time as a government, as a people, to make sure that we have the proper things that we want. If you do not fix what needs to be fixed in the offices so people can work and be productive, so the hours that people are putting in, they're giving the commensurate wages and salaries, people will become apathetic. And when they do that, then they won't.
Too bad. It appears we've lost Liz again, Benjamin.
It appears so, but a very important point she's making. I was just going to rope in the bit. Liz, I know you're back now, but right before you go on, I was going to rope in the bit about the midwives as well. You know, they've also put their statement out on the self-same matter. So now we have The Public Services Workers Union, I had their Deputy General Secretary here yesterday, Mr. Sampa. The teachers are in there. We now have the midwives also saying, give us cost of living allowance. And when you look at the increment when it comes to inflation, I mean, something must give. And like some have suggested, if government can't dole out money now or give certain benefits now, they must find other means. Taxes, we say we're not going to do anything about them. So only God knows how that is going to pan out. But back to you, Liz.
Yes, and when you mentioned taxes, that was where I was going, that there are too many taxes that people have to pay. And if we should mitigate that to make sure that workers are comfortable, and that's what we have to do for now. It will put a strain on government's finance because they won't be reaping in what they're expecting to reap in. But it will make the people comfortable. And when the people are more comfortable, they probably will put in more work and therefore will be more productive. So we really have to weigh and make sure that we come to a consensus that is agreeable to both government and the workers.
Talking about having money available to sort out these concerns by the workers reminds me of a suggestion Professor Lord Mensah gave. He suggested that, look, okay, if we're still going to take the e-levy, why not put that money aside and rather give it to the teachers? Because people suggested, well, we thought it was e-levy or IMF. Now we have gone to the IMF, so scrap the e-levy. The finance ministry says we're not going to scrap it. Well, there are suggestions that why not use that money you accrue to sort out the cost of living allowance for the workers. I don't know if government will consider that. But
would we find consensus on that? That's the question.
Well,
that's Professor Lord Mensah. He's one. I'm sure even among the economists, if you spoke to them, you would get so many of them telling you different things. And that tends to be the problem. In the end, government must decide. But I think where things are going, you don't have to be a crack economist. You don't have to be Peter Kwate or Professor Hank to know that we need to do something. And for me, I say this cautiously, the government statistician, yeah, fine guy, enormous brain, but I have my nibbling doubts when it comes to the percentages we've been getting in terms of inflation.
You think it's higher?
I honestly feel it's higher. When you go on the market, things you were purchasing at a certain price, when you look at the price differentials and you do your own calculations, of course, they use a pool of over 200 or so things. So there's quite a basket. But trust me, it's a whole different kettle of fish out there. All right, let's get into the Daily Graphic. Snoring over death. You should check out this photo on the front page of the Daily Graphic. So the Daily Graphic's lenses caught these 4 loading boys sleeping on bags of wheat, flour, in the bucket of a moving Kia truck on the Kaneshie-Odoko Road last night. And these scenes are common, very commonplace. The Daily Graphic is wondering how many police checkpoints these vehicles go through without being apprehended. Because this is they could easily, anything could happen. Driver jams on the brakes, or something happens and they are gone. I see the worst.
Let me tell you, on my way to work on Sunday, there were about 6 or 7 people sitting in the back of a vehicle, a pickup, okay? And my sister shared with me that a driver at her workplace actually lost his life like that.
Yeah.
So the vehicle, went over, I think, a ramp or went to do a pothole or something, and it threw the guy off, and then a vehicle ran over him and he died.
You know why it is even so dangerous? Because once you go out, I don't know what the scientists call it, the hippocampus or whatever, the back of your head. Once you take a jolt like that, you're going this way. You hit the back of your head, your chances of survival are. And people take the risk all the time.
But that's a good question they ask. Remember my conversation with the acting of the Road Safety Authority, that conversation I had on road safety. And he also raised the concern about enforcement. Engineer Daunting.
Right.
He raised the concern about enforcement. Liz, I know you step out every day to work, you observe what happens on our streets. It's frustrating. I mean, so you ask yourself, like the Daily Graphic is asking, how many checkpoints, how many police officers, even some of them who may not necessarily be at checkpoints, saw this and let it pass?
I really don't know what to say, because we've talked about this several times, and I think that there is a law against carrying people in the buckets of pickups, but is it being enforced? Our enforcement of our laws is very poor. And I remember once I was using a pickup and I traveled out for a funeral and I was coming back and people wanted to come in the bucket of the pickup. And I said, no, it was wrong. And that I won't take them in a pickup because I won't take them in a bucket because we're traveling over a long distance. And they called me a wicked woman, you know, and so it becomes very dicey when it comes to that. People are stranded, they need to get somewhere, and they think that it's okay in the bucket of a pickup. But I think that if it's wrong, it's wrong. And I won't take you in a bucket of a pickup, no matter what you call me. You know, so I think that our laws need to be enforced. And the questioning of the barriers that they've passed with policemen looking on, and that is our attitude as Ghanaians. We do not think of the fact that it is a danger to the people in the bucket. We're thinking of the driver being magnanimous in putting people in the bucket of his pickup because they need transportation, and that is the only way they can go. And like you said, somebody lost his life. I mean, hit a pothole, go over a ramp wrongly, the people are thrown out, and that is it. And like Benjamin said, even if he steps on his brake, all of a sudden, and you fall back, you knock your head and you're gone. So it's something that needs to be looked at. And I think that the police need to be educated very well to enforce the laws just as they are. That is why they are.
But Liz, do you think the problem is education? I mean, I want to believe these policemen.
A large part of it is education.
But I want to believe these policemen really know, because the situation, and for, let's say, for the last 10 years, I've been using the Accra Kumasi stretch quite a lot. It's about the money. They know.
It's about the money.
They know. So they stop them sometimes. And then, you know, once the money is given, it's like, you can go. So we're exchanging lives for 1 cedi, 2 cedi, 5 cedis.
But back to you, Liz. You know, you talk about the fact that these people, I mean, we're all talking about maybe they don't know and all of it. But I am just, it beats me. It beats me. People are doing it all the time, like you're suggesting, Bernice, and there is no apprehension. The laws are not being enforced. But you see, it smacks of when you say sometimes people say you're not magnanimous or you're not generous. Consider bribery and corruption and what our laws say. In many institutions, if you want certain things done, you must grease palms, you must do this, you must do that. And if you don't do it, you are considered wicked. But it's the right thing to do. So if it's the right thing to do, if we develop that culture, and you know, something interesting, wherever you go across the world where they have certain cultures that we now respect, a place like Singapore, sometimes I find it very interesting reading about such countries because they were very much like us. Some of the things we're doing now, they were doing decades ago. It took a renewal of mindset, and it took the coming generation to decide that, in fact, to have it foisted on them that this is the way we do things now. And they stuck to it. So I think we really need that paradigm shift, else we're not going anywhere. We're not. But just to move on, unless you have a chip in?
No. That's...
Let's move on to a few stories and we're done. Budget review tomorrow. Direct IMF inflows into agri sector players urge government. And players in the agri sector have advised the government to direct part of the inflows to be secured from the IMF into the agri sector. The players said increased investment into the sector backed by solid policy measures was crucial to help stabilize the rising cost of food products in the short to medium term and support the revival of the economy. So everybody pitching, so to speak, for something.
But we've already been told what the money is going to be used for, haven't we?
Have we?
The information minister says it's supposed to help us with our balance of payments. So,
no, but we have balance of payments, of course, on the back of our wide debt, but our gully of debt, if you like. But not all of it can be pumped into that. There will be other, I mean,
In fact,
we're looking at the economy holistically. So there are different aspects of the.
So on the probe, for example, he said, so there was a guest 2 weeks ago, and the guest said, well, I don't even think going to IMF will solve our economic challenges.
No, it won't.
And he said, I agree with you, because what we are going to IMF for is balance of payment support. But what will deal with the other economic challenges is, having better relationship with the private sector to see how the private sector can improve, blah, blah, blah. And then also increase revenue generation to support other sectors of the economy. So, I heard this morning, PRO of the Peasant Farmers Association was speaking on Adom and also suggesting that government should invest. But I was asking myself, haven't we been told already what the money is going to be used for?
Well, the pitches will go on and the deliberations continue. I think since yesterday, starting today, actually, the IMF will be engaging us. It still remains up in the air whether we'll even get an IMF program. That's another question. Two quick stories. Northeast region. We probably will.
Yes. And what happens is that with balance of payment, if you increase productivity, you'd be able to be getting some resource to help with your balance of payment. So if they're putting it in the agri sector, that is what a right call. Some monies can't go there. But my problem with the agri sector is that we are always producing more than necessary, and we have nothing when it comes to value added to our products from the farms. So you get the tomatoes rotting, you get the garden eggs rotting, you get the okra rotting, and people losing their monies. If we look more at agribusiness and making sure that we are adding value to our produce, then in the lean season, there'll be produce on the market because we have added value and we have stored. But if we keep just producing in bulk and leaving it to rot and not doing anything about it, we are going in a vicious cycle.
Right.
Because the farmer would not get that amount of money that he expects from his produce because half of it is getting rotten. The market woman will go and buy and then will increase because half her produce that she went to buy is rotten, but she must make a profit. So we need to look at the thing holistically and make sure that we are, from the farm gates to the market, we are mitigating the cost of the produce. And if the produce is taken off the farmer's hand when he harvests in bulk, because we're going to add value, then at least we know we are moving somewhere. But our productivity levels are very low. And if we do not produce, if we produce more than necessary by pumping into the agri sector and not doing anything to make sure that we have the same produce in the lean season, then I don't think that we are really working well.
Well, our silo systems have not worked at their utmost, especially those left to us by Nkrumah. But what can we say? Point made. Just to wrap, tied to that, there's IMF bailout talks, debt arrears, contentious topics. We'll be bringing you more of that later, but that's in the graphic business. No guarantor loans. Bernice, you remember? No guarantor loans. 12 million Ghana cedis has been released so far to students, but our students in faraway Morocco are suffering when it comes to their stipends. And I had to, sometimes we talk about the negatives. How about the positives? Northeast region welcomes infrastructural projects and, the regional reorganization and all of that. But in the Northeast region, a number of roads are springing up with bitumen surfacing, 4 factories, educational infrastructure, and improved water system. So something at least
to smile about. Exactly. Well, front page of the Daily Guide, Henry Quarter warns Ramsar encroaches. I'll revamp NPP to break the 8 and we'll bounce back soon, Alan assures. This one is a very disturbing one. 2 men arrested with human head.
Ooh.
Yeah. Let me just read a bit of that story on page 6. 2 drivers are currently in the custody of the Accra Region Police Command for allegedly having in their possession a fresh male human head. The 2 were arrested in Hobor near Amanfrom in the Ghana South municipality on Sunday evening around 8 p.m. after their vehicle was involved in an accident. Witnesses said the human head concealed in a bag inside the back seat of the vehicle was exposed After the vehicle somersaulted several times and landed in a ditch, the man from police, according to witnesses, were immediately informed, leading to the arrest of one person, but one other who managed to escape from the scene was later arrested by the police. Narrating the incident, a Daily Guide, a witness who spoke on condition of anonymity, said the two suspect identities withheld by the police were driving a Toyota Corolla cab from Kaswa coming towards Amanfrim. The two men bypassed a police barrier, but again, their vehicle was not searched by the police. We know they do a lot of random searching. So, well, upon reaching the Hobo area, the eyewitnesses said the driver attempted to dodge a pothole, and in the process, the vehicle somersaulted and landed in a ditch. This is very disturbing, okay? But once again, if
the police missed all of it. It took a pothole to police these people. And
if you're superstitious, probably the dead person's spirit, caused something funny. But on a more serious note, this is disturbing. And I don't know if you've realized, I saw that quite a lot last year, but I'm beginning to see it again. Notices of missing persons springing up on social media. Liz, your quick comment on this particular disturbing
maybe right
one.
before Liz comes in, is it also sheer coincidence or the fact that when you look at our trajectory all the way from before 2000 till now, a lot of the time when the economy is really hard, when times get really hard, we see crimes that it's not that you don't see them, but there tends to be a spike in certain outrageous crimes. I don't know whether I'm the only one observing that from last year leading into this one, but back to you, Liz.
I agree with you, Ben. When things get very tough for a lot of people, they resort to all kinds of things that they believe will give them money or will make them wealthy. And therefore, you see crime on the increase, especially in very hard times, because people are desperate and they'll go to all lengths to make sure that they have some sustenance. And like Benny said, it's very worrying to be able to pass a police post without that check. I think that like we all know, the checks are sometimes random, and with taxis, people believe that the taxi drivers now are not that much into crime like before. Before you see a taxi driver and you're suspicious, especially depending on the time of the day. And so I won't fault the police too much. Sometimes you just trust people when you see them, but it's not every day that they do thorough checks. And so this probably would pass. I'm not as superstitious as Ben is. I believe that the driver was just not careful, and therefore he fell in the pothole, and then he had.
Liz, I'm not superstitious, but I'm sure in our setting, a lot of people will begin to read such meanings. But this story is captured on page 12. What you shared earlier, Ghana on high alert for Boko Haram escapees.
Right.
So. Hopefully, they will not be able to infiltrate, but looking at our porous borders.
And again, being on high alert should also include all of us. Be on the lookout. You see people, you see something, say something. You see people in your community who are not known in the community, all of a sudden they are doing certain suspicious things. Be sure to prompt the police, because next thing you know, could be wahala for all of us.
All right, so let me just finish with the finder. IMF bailout will help restore confidence in the economy. Alan is captured on other papers. President appeals to striking teachers to return to the classroom. All set for work to begin on Ofanko and Saum Dole carriageway. Teachers government meet again today to seek solution to strike over 20% COLA. And this one, SHS to receive foodstuffs latest today. I don't know if you've been following that particular development, Liz, about schools not having enough to feed school children. We know that for some portions or rations have reduced, and for others, they have breakfast without the bread complement. And these are students who need to eat well so they can learn. Some have suggested, let's go back to the system where parents were supporting with feeding at least, because this has been happening over time and we don't seem to have a lasting solution to it.
And for some schools, parents are supporting with the feeding, because if your child is not getting enough and complains to you, if it was my child, I won't sit here I'll fill the chop box. And if I have to fill the chop box 3 times in a term, I'll do so. So people are supporting the children in school. But we should put it together, because not everybody is in a situation where they can provide that kind of feeding for their children that often in providing chop boxes. And so if parents have to, especially in the privileged schools, where you know that you were paying for your child in some international school, and you were paying so much, and then all of a sudden the person moves into free SHS and you see that they're suffering. I believe that the PTAs or the PA should be up and doing.
Right.
I mean, parents associations, parent-teacher associations, they should be up and doing. You see that the school is struggling, the children need to be fed. You know that the parents are well-to-do, the parents of the children in the schools are well-to-do, and they can contribute to the feeding.
Right.
But let's a quick one there. We are wrapping up, but doesn't that defeat the purpose of free SHS then? So for those whose parents can't afford, and the school heads have been warned not to take any monies. You know, initially...
Yesterday, the conversation came up about some parents who, you know, in the past, I heard you mention
in my
own school and how, and other prominent schools. So it's a bit...
So when they bring in the money, then they're able to cater for all the children in the dining hall, and those who are not so well-to-do can get it. But if it's about parents giving their own children what they want to do, then it defeats the purpose of free SHS then people are in school and they are hungry.
Exactly, and so the parent associations need to agree, and the money has to go to the school. I was thinking that free SHS had to do a lot with tuition and their books. Being in a boarding school, I believe that the parents have a role to play. Even when you're in the university and you're going to school, much as you're not paying anything, or we were not paying anything in our time, you had to take care of everything else. You know, and our parents did. So when we're talking about free, let's look more at tuition and the logistics needed for educating the individuals.
Right.
And everything else that has to do with their feeding. Because if they're in a day school, they go to school and they come home, who feeds them?
So I'll just wrap without commentary on these 2 stories in the Economy Times. Relevant. You can check out on page 6 why former Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Dufour, feels going back to the IMF is flawed, and why Seth Tekpe, a former finance minister as well, also thinks the Petroleum Fund is where we should have gone to, or built, not go to the IMF. Thoughts for you as we deliberate with the IMF as a government. But on that note, we'd like to say a big thank you to you, Liz Hayfan-Asari, for joining the conversation.
I apologize because I've had flack from some of your viewers for abruptly leaving last week. That is not what happened. My electricity went off. There was nothing I could do.
Sorry about that, Liz. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us. So the show continues. We'll bring you sports shortly. Do stay with us.